Have you ever noticed how life feels like an endless pursuit of satisfaction? Pause. That persistent emptiness you feel, even after achieving everything you've ever wanted, has a much deeper explanation than you might imagine. Today, I'm going to reveal knowledge so powerful it will completely transform how you see reality. It's as if you're about to receive the key to a vault that's been locked for centuries, containing secrets that few have access to. Get ready to discover why you feel this way, and more importantly, how you can break free. Arthur Schopenhauer discovered something so revolutionary about human nature that it continues to transform lives to this day. This isn't just ordinary philosophy, it's practically an instruction manual for the human mind. After you understand what I'm about to show you, you'll never look at your desires and frustrations the same way again. You're about to embark on a journey through the darkest corners of human existence, but don't worry. By the end, you'll understand exactly how to find the peace you've been searching for. According to Schopenhauer, there's a primitive and irrational force driving all existence, the will. We're not just talking about will in the common sense of consciously wanting something, but rather a blind and insatiable impulse that permeates the entire universe. It's like an underground current that drives not only humans but all living beings in a relentless pursuit of more. It's fascinating to observe how this will manifest itself at different levels of existence. In nature, we see plants struggling for sunlight, animals hunting for food, and in humans, well, in us, it reaches its peak of complexity and, consequently, of suffering. As Carl Jung observed, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This fundamental force that Schopenhauer identified is completely blind to our individual desires and notions of happiness. Think about how many times you've caught yourself doing something you knew wasn't good for you, but simply couldn't avoid. Pause. That's the will operating beyond reason, like a storm that couldn't care less about our picnic plans. The most intriguing aspect of this theory is that we can never fully satisfy the will, it always wants more. Marcus Aurelius had noticed something similar when he said, "Very soon you will be dead, and still you are not simple, not serene." It's a powerful warning about how we can spend our entire lives chasing satisfactions that, by their very nature, can never be fully achieved. Just imagine one of history's greatest philosophers suggesting that sometimes playing the fool is the best strategy. Sounds absurd, doesn't it? Pause, but that's exactly what Schopenhauer proposed in one of his most controversial pieces of advice. In a society where everyone wants to appear as the smartest person in the room, he argued that displaying all our intellectual capacity isn't always the best choice. In 19th century Germany, when Schopenhauer developed his philosophy, intellectual vanity was a trademark of philosophical circles. Amid heated debates and exaggerated displays of knowledge, our philosopher realized something that Lao Tzu had noticed centuries before. The wise do not display their wisdom. Just as the deepest valley does not announce its depth, doesn't this idea make perfect sense when we look at our daily lives? Pause. Think about the times you felt compelled to prove your worth, to showcase all your knowledge at once. As Carl Jung would say, the louder the surface, the shallower the lake. True power lies in knowing how to measure it out, in understanding that we don't always need to show all our cards. In practice, this seemingly controversial advice reveals itself as a powerful tool of social intelligence. Instead of constantly seeking validation through displays of knowledge, we can create space for others to express themselves. As Michel de Montaigne wisely observed, the highest wisdom is knowing when not to appear wise. In an era when philosophical optimism dominated European thought, Schopenhauer presented a revolutionary and unsettling vision. Suffering isn't an accident in human life, but its very essence. For him, our existence is fundamentally marked by pain, and happiness is nothing more than a brief moment of freedom from suffering. As Freud would later say, we are not designed to be happy, only to survive. This perspective stems from a deep observation of reality. Pause. Just look around us to see that pain is constant, while pleasure is always temporary. Think about how hunger, fatigue, and discomfort are natural states that constantly torment us, while satisfying these desires offers only momentary relief. It's as if life were a pendulum swinging between pain and boredom. Doesn't this idea make perfect sense when we look at our daily lives? Pause, think about the times you felt compelled to prove your worth, to showcase all your knowledge at once. As Carl Jung would say, the louder the surface, the shallower the lake. True power lies in knowing how to measure it out, in understanding that we don't always need to show all our cards. In practice, this seemingly controversial advice reveals itself as a powerful tool of social intelligence. Instead of constantly seeking validation through displays of knowledge, we can create space for others to express themselves. As Michel de Montaigne wisely observed, the highest wisdom is knowing when not to appear wise. In an era when philosophical optimism dominated European thought, Schopenhauer presented a revolutionary and unsettling vision. Suffering isn't an accident in human life, but its very essence. For him, our existence is fundamentally marked by pain, and happiness is nothing more than a brief moment of freedom from suffering. As Freud would later say, we are not designed to be happy, only to survive. This perspective stems from a deep observation of reality. Pause, just look around us to see that pain is constant, while pleasure is always temporary. Think about how hunger, fatigue, and discomfort are natural states that constantly torment us, while satisfying these desires offers only momentary relief. It's as if life were a pendulum swinging between pain and boredom. Think about how many times you've told yourself, when I get this, I'll be happy. Maybe it was a promotion, a relationship, a new house, or any other achievement. And when you finally got it, how long did that feeling of complete fulfillment last? Pause, as Seneca observed. It is the mark of an unsound mind to always crave new things. This is the trap Schopenhauer warned us about. We live chasing satisfactions that are, by nature, temporary. It's like trying to quench your thirst by drinking seawater. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. True wisdom lies in recognizing this pattern and starting to question whether the happiness we seek is really in the next achievement. Have you ever stopped to consider if the world you see is really the world as it is? Pause. For Schopenhauer, everything we perceive is merely a representation, like a movie projected in our minds. It's an idea that seems straight out of the Matrix, but was conceived 2 centuries earlier. As Plato had already suggested with his allegory of the cave, we live trapped in shadows of what we believe to be real. Imagine you're wearing a virtual reality headset. Everything you see, touch, and feel is processed through this device. Schopenhauer would say our mind works exactly like this. We don't have direct access to reality, only to our interpretation of it. As Kant, his predecessor, had noted, we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. So what exists behind this representation? For Schopenhauer, it's the same universal will we mentioned before. It's as if the entire universe were a grand manifestation of this fundamental force, and we humans were merely different expressions of it. Pause, think of an ocean and its waves. Each wave appears separate, but they're all manifestations of the same water. This understanding has profound implications. If we're all manifestations of the same will, the divisions we create between us are illusory. As the Eastern masters who greatly influenced Schopenhauer would say, the sensation of separation is the greatest of all illusions. When we realize this, our relationship with the world and other beings can radically change. Have you ever noticed how your dog can find genuine happiness in the simplest things? Pause. Schopenhauer made a fascinating observation. Animals seem much more satisfied with life than we humans, and it's not because they have an easier life. In fact, it's quite the opposite. The difference lies in how they experience existence. While a cat is content to find a sunbeam to warm itself, we humans are constantly projecting our thoughts into the future, creating expectations, planning, and worrying. Our capacity for abstract thinking, which we're so proud of, ends up becoming our own prison. As Lao Tzu said, happiness is not having what you want, but wanting what you have. The simplicity of animal life isn't a limitation, but a gift. animals live entirely in the present. They carry no regrets about the past nor anxieties about the future. They simply are. Pause. Our expanded consciousness, on the other hand, allows us to imagine endless possibilities, compare our lives with others, and create increasingly complex desires that we can never fully satisfy. This observation by Schopenhauer leads us to an interesting paradox. The more we develop our ability to think and plan, the further we drift from the natural happiness that animals effortlessly enjoy. It's as if our intellectual evolution came with an enormous emotional price tag, the loss of our ability to simply exist in the present moment. Pause. After all this seemingly dark perspective, Schopenhauer offers us a light at the end of the tunnel. If suffering comes from the insatiable will, then the path to peace lies in learning to silence it. It's no coincidence that he was one of the first Western philosophers to seriously delve into Eastern teachings, especially Buddhism and Hinduism. This idea of denial of the will doesn't mean a life of total deprivation, but rather a profound shift in perspective. It's like turning off the autopilot that keeps us constantly craving more and more. The philosopher found in Eastern contemplative practices a practical path to this liberation. As the Buddha teaches, you are not your possessions, you are not your thoughts, you are not your desires. Imagine your desires and thoughts are like clouds in the sky. They come and go, but the sky itself remains unchanged. Pause. This Eastern metaphor, which greatly influenced Schopenhauer, shows us that we can observe our desires without necessarily identifying with them. It's a subtle form of freedom, but one that's deeply transformative. True peace, according to Schopenhauer, isn't found in getting everything we want, but in reducing our desires to what's truly essential. As Marcus Aurelius would say, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. It's an invitation to a simpler, more conscious, and paradoxically, more fulfilling existence. The next time you catch yourself chasing another achievement, another goal, another desire, pause for a moment. Pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, could all this pursuit be taking you away from true happiness? Perhaps Schopenhauer's wisdom lies precisely in showing us that the peace we're searching for is closer than we think. Think about how many times you've achieved something you desperately wanted, only to find that the satisfaction lasted just days or weeks. Now, imagine living with more lightness, without the constant weight of endless desires. The good news is that you can start this transformation right now by paying more attention to the patterns that keep you trapped in this cycle. So, what do you think about this different perspective on happiness? Share in the comments how you plan to apply these teachings in your life. If you want to continue this journey of self-discovery with me, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss upcoming videos where we'll explore even more revolutionary ideas that can transform your life.